everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of war, a time of peace, a time of love, a time of hate. A time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rent, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time of peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything there is a season. To everything there is a season. To everything turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven.
Welcome to the Sedona Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and I am Carolyn Cavanaugh, your worship associate this morning. And before we begin, we want to extend a special welcome to anybody who are first-time visitors, or maybe visiting us for a second or third time. So if anyone here would like to be acknowledged, all you have to do is raise your hand. Oh, welcome. Is there anyone else? All right, so we're all old-timers. Okay. If you would look at your order of service and repeat with me the shared affirmation of mission. This fellowship is a welcoming, diverse, and nurturing global community that promotes progressive religious thought and practice to create a more loving, just, and sustainable world. Now it's time for announcements, and we have quite a few. The first one concerns David Locke, who was born January 9th, 1921, and who passed September 7th, 2021, at age 100. He was a long-time resident, and his daughter, Diane, who is a member, is going to have a memorial service this Friday, November 5th. It starts at 11, And it will be at the Posse Grounds Pavilion. And if you have any questions, you can contact Diana Dow. She is in our directory, or you can see me after. I'll give you her phone. And Marge Haas has an announcement. She is participating in the Ollie Fall class. And both she and Paul Friedman have a course, which she didn't tell us what it's about. But you can go on their website, and she said registration is filling up, so that if you're interested, you can go to the Ollie Sedona Verde Valley website to sign up. The next announcement is from the Outreach Committee, and I see that Penny is here, and she heads it up. So this announcement has to do with the Sedona Community Food Bank after-school snack program. And for those of you who have been packing in the past, we have months that we actually used to go in person, but we can't because of COVID. So what the Outreach Committee is doing is they are going to collect individually wrapped snacks and fruit juices and packs. And they have to be like individual size. They can't be like really big because they fill a Walmart, one of those Walmart bags. And each child gets one on Friday who needs it. And we've been doing this program now, I would say 4 or 5 years. So we're going to have a collection box in the vestibule here on November 7th and November 14th for those attending services. And I know Penny in the past, and Cora, and Jan's here too. Sometimes if you forget, you can drop it off at their houses too. So think about it, if you want to contribute. It's starting next Sunday, actually.
What are the items?
They are individually packed snacks in like fruit juice pouches, or you could do fruit cups, those types of things, yeah, but they're individual servings. All right, the next announcement's from Susannah Martin. This announcement is for the November 14th Sunday service. It's entitled Poetry as a Spiritual Practice. And we are inviting you to share one of your original poems, or it could be a favorite poem by another writer. Please submit your poems by Friday, November 5th, to Susannah or Reverend Anthony. You may submit just the text, or you can read it if you have the technological know-how, like voice memo. And then they'll play your video, or you could just be an auto recording during the service. And Susannah's so good at putting graphics to poems, so feel free not to actually tape yourself. You can just do audio. Now, we have enough live readers to read other people's poems on November 14th. And we want to give a special thank you to those people who stepped up and volunteered. And they're going to get in touch with you to coordinate more. But we are looking for 1 or 2 folks that will read their own original poems. You can do it live or recording. So if you want to share one of your own original poems in your own voice, please let us know by November 5th. And the email contacts are musician@sedonau.org, or you can do minister@sedonau.org. And some of this is going to be in the November newsletter, so pay attention and read your newsletters. And one other special announcement. Craig and Cornelia Hartley are moving to Colorado. And we're going to be really sorry to see them go. They've been members for a long time, and they've participated in many activities that really helped SUUF grow. And so, but we wish them the best. We wish them well. And I think I'm done with announcements. Yes.
Could I make one more? I'm sorry. Since Ali...
Here.
Good morning, everybody. Since Ali came up, I just want to say one of Kathy and mine's favorite instructors is here, Kurt Island. And he's teaching a racism class, the origins of racism. And his part 2 starts this Tuesday. And also Anthony will be a speaker in one of your classes, but not next week.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He will be speaking Tuesday.
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, so please, if you can, join us, or you can still sign up for classes at Ollie. And please look up Kurt Island's class on racism.
It's at 1 o'clock.
It's incredible. 1 o'clock on Tuesday.
Thank you to the Rabbi. With the kindling of this flame, we reaffirm our commitment to accept life's gifts with grace and gratitude, to use them to bless the world in the spirit of love.
Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place.
Live together, love forever. It's the only thing we can do. I'll be saying we're gonna make it through. Oh, yeah.
Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place.
African, American, de man är på Don Ben. Asian, Européen, de man är på Don Ben. Salut, salam, shalom, salut, salam, shalom. Noir ou blanc, rouge ou jaune. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe jale, nie bom. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe jale, nie sak. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe tomadama.
Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you hear it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place.
It was a snowy winter evening in Munich during the Nazi era in Germany. A young woman riding home from work was seated by the window in the rear of a crowded city bus.
Suddenly, the bus stopped, and two SS stormtroopers climbed aboard the coach and started making their way down the aisle, examining the identification papers of every passenger.
The woman saw the people whose papers identified them as Jews were being told to leave the bus and to step up into the back of a truck parked around the corner. She was terrified and began to tremble. As the soldiers neared, tears started to trickle down her face.
The man seated next to her noticed that she was shaking and crying and asked, "Excuse me, miss, you suddenly seem very upset. Why are you crying?"
I don't have the papers you have. I'm a Jew. They're going to take me away.
Oh. The man thought for a moment and then he turned back to her and he said, "Oh, for God's sake, you stupid woman, you drive me crazy. This always happens. I can't stand it anymore."
By the time the SS men had arrived at their seat, they asked the man what the fuss was about.
"Ah, it's this idiotic woman. I don't know how I ever could have married her. She never learns. Here are my papers, but my wife has left hers at home again. I'm fed up. She always does this."
The soldiers replied, "Take it easy, sir. We understand. It happens a lot." They smiled, shook their heads, looked at his papers, handed them back, and moved on up the aisle.
The man got off the bus 2 stops later.
The woman never saw him again. She never even knew his name.
This kind of experience could happen to any of us. We might be going about our daily business when we stumble into a situation where a need suddenly exists that only we can fill. The task may require inconvenience or self-sacrifice, even risk. It's also a chance to step forward and define who we are.
This does not mean you should assume every risk or make every self-sacrifice, but it does mean that you have a chance at such a moment to consider yourself placed there for a reason.
Being a free person doesn't just mean doing whatever you want. It also means being free to step up, to take on responsibility for what's going on in your presence. At such moments, we can't blame what happens on anyone else.
The more we comprehend our mutual interdependence, the more we fathom the implications of our most trivial acts. We find that we live within a luminous organism of sacred responsibility.
Even when riding a bus home from work.
Now it's my privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Janine Gelsinger. She's the director of UUJAZ, and it stands for Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona. And she's here to invite us to consider our relationship with risk, which is why that reading was so appropriate, to determine how we can live out our UU values boldly and courageously. And now I give you Janine Gelsinger.
Applause even, wow, thank you. I feel so welcome. Thank you so much, Sedona, for having me here with you today. I was blessed by a gorgeous drive this morning up from Phoenix, so thank you for starting my day off with that view. Like Carolyn said, I'm Janine Gelsinger. I am the Executive Director of Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona, where our mission is to support all the UU congregations in the state of Arizona with finding a way to live out your values through justice work. We do that in 4 ways. We partner with like-minded frontline organizers to see how UUs can get involved in the actions that they are leading. We also support the social justice ministries in congregations. We connect congregations across the state to come together to do shared work. And we also work on policy in order to change public policy in the state of Arizona at the state, city, school board, and county levels in order to have a state that more reflects our UU values. So I came here today to talk a little bit about risk, as Carolyn and as that wonderful reading set up for us. And you know, risk is a really interesting topic for us recently because over the last 18 months, maybe more, a lot of us have had to think about risk almost every day, right? During this pandemic, we've thought all the time about what kind of risks we are taking, right? And I see some of you nodding. We have to think about what we are willing to risk, and also when we take a risk, how that affects our family, our friends, the other members of our community. And so I know at this point you all are experts on discerning risk because we know that that's very personal and it's also a part of how we choose to be together in community. So I want to tell you all a little bit of a story about my summer. This summer, I was honored as a representative of the UUs in Arizona to travel to Minnesota once in June and once at the end of July with a bunch of climate justice organizers from Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro, from White People Against White Supremacy, which is an Arizona-based group fighting racism. We also had folks with us from CHISPA, which is a climate justice organization, and from Sunrise Movement. And we met up with many, many other UUs in Minnesota, in northern Minnesota, to work to try to stop the Line 3 pipeline. Now, if you're not familiar with Line 3, it is a pipeline that runs through northern Minnesota, and it's owned by Enbridge, which is an oil company based out of Canada. Line 3 is a tar sands pipeline, so it's one of the most difficult ways to extract oil. And the Line 3 pipeline, because of age and leaks, needed to be replaced. And instead of digging up the old pipeline and putting a new one there, Enbridge decided to create a new path for the pipeline. And the path was planning to go right through the headwaters of the Mississippi River, and also through land that was promised to the Anishinaabe people as part of their treaties, the indigenous folks who live in northern Minnesota. And so as UUs, we look at our values and say, is it right to threaten one of the biggest sources of water in our entire country, the Mississippi River, that affects thousands and thousands of people? Is it right to desecrate sacred lands that were promised in a treaty that we know our promises have been broken over and over and over to indigenous people that steward the land, that were here first? And so we joined with these other groups, first in June at the Treaty People Gathering, in order to try to send a message to President Biden, who has the ability to stop it if he chooses, to stop this pipeline, to honor the treaties, and to invest in alternative forms of fuel. In June, I learned a lot. It was one of the first times I had been in a giant group of 200 people in a very long time, as you can imagine. We camped outdoors, and I can't even describe an action camp to you. Some of you might have been in a direct action camp before. I look forward to hearing your stories about it later if you come and tell me outside after service. But there were around 200 people that had all come up because we know that people working together have the power, right? And so we met at this camp, and one of the most beautiful things about it was how it really took everyone to make this work. Now, yes, there were courageous folks there, including Elena Perez, one of the UUJAZ board members, who's an indigenous UU from the Picaras Pueblo tribe, and Kia Bordner, who's another indigenous UU who came to join us from San Diego. There were brave folks like Kia and Lynn that chose to risk arrest, to physically lock down to a pipeline. And for every person that was willing to take that direct action, to put their body on the line, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of people behind them doing all of the other things that needed to make this action work. There were folks there who were just there on kitchen duty, cooking food for 200 people. Giant pots of lentils and all sorts of amazing goodies so that we could feed everyone over the days of training before this action. There were folks there that made movement art, that were in charge of making the giant banners and visuals, that were in charge of sketching out how the chalking would look on the street when we sent a 50-foot message to the powers that be to stop the pipeline. There were musicians who made sure that people's spirits stayed high as we planned our action. I was on a jail support team. Jail support is one of the behind-the-scenes roles. You have a big piece of paper and a highlighter, and you have the lists of everyone's name who are in the direct action. And after it's over, one by one, you cross them off if you find out they haven't been arrested, and you circle them if they've had. And then our job was to call their loved ones that they listed on their form to let them know so their mom wouldn't stay up all night worrying that their child had been arrested. And we were the contact point to make sure that we provided some care to the family. And we made sure that we had their favorite foods and their favorite coffee drink ready for them when they were released from jail, and made sure they came out to a warm group of friends with the coffee and snacks that they needed. And jail support isn't a very flashy role. It's not something that's out front in front of the press, right? No one was taking a million pictures of me. But it's an essential behind the scenes role in order to make sure that our folks stay safe, that someone has their eyes on them, that someone's looking out for them while they're arrested. One of the surprise roles that I had during this action was when I dropped off a few friends to one of the public protests. Since I was on jail support, my job was to stay in the car and stay near a phone. So I didn't get to go to the big, open, public protest at the mouthwater of the Mississippi. But I did get to drop off some friends and stay in the car while they held up their signs and chanted. And when the protest was over, I was still sitting in my car on the side of the road when folks started to leave and walk by. Now, you can imagine the mouthwaters of the Mississippi are at the lowest point, right? Because that's how rivers work. So folks had to walk uphill on either side back to their cars. It's really hot in Minnesota, like 90-something degrees, and they have this thing called humidity there. I know we're not super familiar with it, us Arizonans, but it was very hot in Minnesota that day. And I noticed that another car came up beside me, slowed down, leaned out their window and said, "Hey, do you need a ride to your car?" The person said yes, gratefully accepted, jumped in the car, and they drove them up to the car so they wouldn't have to walk the whole way. And I thought, I'm just sitting here in my car. I could be doing that too. And so for the next 30 minutes or so, I got to meet people from all over the country as I offered rides to everyone walking to their car that I could see. They told me why they had come, what it meant to them, and they were really, really grateful for the ride. I felt like I was doing something really, really small, but it was so joyful to get to experience the energy and passion that all these folks had, and also to experience some of that gratitude, because sometimes the roles I take are behind the scenes and I don't necessarily get to interface with folks in that way. And so it turned out that being a shuttle driver was one of my favorite roles this whole time, because we were saving people from walking, a half mile uphill in 90-degree humidity and making it easier for people to be able to come out and do something like this again. And so I tell you that story to lift up that I know that you all are paying attention to what's going on in the world. And I know that climate change and racism and the defunding of our schools and the way that our economy is benefiting some and not others, I know that these things are on your hearts and minds. The attacks against LGBTQ rights, the anti-trans bills from last year's legislature, on and on and on. And I know these issues touch your heart because I hear from you. And I also know that UUs ask me all the time, what can I do? And sometimes it feels like the only thing you can do is to do what the people in front of the cameras are doing and chain yourselves to a bulldozer. And that if you can't chain yourselves to a bulldozer, that you don't have a place in the movement. I'm here to tell you that that is not true. I have 2 young children at home. Right now is not the time for me to be chaining myself to a bulldozer, getting arrested for multiple days in jail. What would happen to my children during that time? But there are so many rules behind the scenes. So at Issues in Action Day this year, which is our big statewide event that UUJAZ holds annually, of course we needed to pivot it online this year, but we did record it for you all. And so this year at Issues in Action Day, we asked UUs if they would be willing to do a asset mapping of their fellowships, their congregations. If you would be willing to take a little bit of a survey and ask yourself, what level of risk am I willing to take? And that is a question that only you can answer. I can't answer that for anyone. But what is your place? Would you be willing to be a chef for the movement? I don't know if you know Reverend Meg Riley, but she was the former minister of the CLF, the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is the largest UU church in the world, the original online UU church, before all of us went online. And she's now the co-moderator of the UUA. So arguably one of the most powerful seats in all of the UUA. And Reverend Meg came to Minnesota to bring us chili that she had made and fed us all for our training, because she knew that she didn't need to be at the front lines, but she had something to contribute. She had something to offer. So we've put together a discernment packet, a discernment form, to ask our UUs in Arizona, what are you willing to do? Here are all of the different jobs available. And when we get a call from our partners that there's something going on at the border about immigration justice, that there's a protest at the state capitol, that there's something that we're doing in order to live out our UU values for justice, we want to know, who do we have on our team? What can we offer? Because we know UUs are good at showing up in our yellow t-shirts. But sometimes they need folks who can be legal observers, who can keep a careful eye on what's happening at the protest and take really great notes and be neutral, not a person carrying a sign and chanting, but someone who's trained by the National Lawyers Guild to be a legal observer at the protest. So we make sure that we are keeping eyes on how things are going for all of our protesters and keeping our right to protest. Sometimes we need medics, folks who are able to be trained in emergency first aid, so that when someone gets overheated, there's someone to make sure they have a chair and some water and is able to assess quickly if they need additional medical help. And all of this we have training for. What I don't know is who is willing to do what. And so I hope today you're inspired to spend a little bit of time discerning your role in the movement. What gifts do you bring? What are you willing to do, and what are you willing to risk for? Will you share it with us so that we can be the UU partners that live out our values in Arizona and across the world? Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Janine. I'm always inspired by your words, and keep on doing the great work. And I'm sure you're going to hear from some of us up here. I see some nods. Great. All right, now is the time for a moment of stillness and silence. So I invite you just to take a deep breath. In, out. Come into this wonderful space that we have here. And let us open ourselves here, now, in the process of becoming more whole, of living more fully, of giving and forgiving more freely, of understanding more completely the meaning of our lives here on this earth. Now we will have a moment of silence that will finish with the ringing of the gong. Every week, we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this church.
Of your fellow man, lend him a helping hand, put a little love in your heart. You see it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait and see. Another day goes by and still the children cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know we won't let hatred grow, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Let's just wait and see. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. And I hope when you decide kindness will be your guide, put a little love in
Thank you, Susannah. That was really nice. We miss you up here, but we still get to hear you sing, so that's great. Okay, now is the time for joys and concerns, and Mary's going to help put the stones in. All right, I'm going to start. I have a concern because we have a problem in our own backyard, and it's called Oak Creek Flats. The Apache tribal leader was on NPR last Monday and talked about the sacred site that is there, and that Resolution Copper wants to come in and mine. And if they get their way, if Resolution Copper gets to mine there, their entire area will be destroyed. It will go down 1,000 feet and 2 miles wide. So think about it. It would be like this whole synagogue disappeared. And then yesterday, somebody came to their altar, which is outdoors and is their church, and desecrated it. We have a problem, and we have to recognize it, and we have to fight against it. What can you do? I'm going to write some letters to the editor, and I'm going to see what else can be done to support an indigenous group who was told they were able to keep this land until all of a sudden they can't anymore. Sound familiar? So I'm very troubled by it. Okay, so I'm done, and now I'm going to continue with the rest. There is a joy here that Tom and Deidre Rowan have just arrived back safely from a 3-week trip to Minnesota to take care of family business. And they probably are resting up from their trip. So we're glad they're back safe. And a next joy is that one of our SUUF friends who used to attend years ago is enjoying our online services and would like to come back to in-person services, but she can no longer drive. She lives in Cottonwood. So if you're driving here from Cottonwood and might be able to provide a ride for her, please let Pat raise your hand. She's back there with that cute pumpkin sweater. Our secretary, and she can get in touch with this person. Thanks, Pat. All right, there's a few more. Susannah Martin has a joy. She said, I was finally able to see my family in San Diego after 2 years of separation due to COVID. And that included my father, sisters and brother, and extended family. Patrick and I also enjoyed beautiful beach walks each day of our 4-day trip. I hope it was very healing. Good. And then Pamela, I hope I say your name correctly, R-E-A-Y. Rhea? Or Ray? Is Pamela here? Okay. What she is telling us is that my son, Victor William, passed away on July 21st, 2021 of ventricular. She has it actually in parentheses. I don't know how to say that. Tachycardia, a condition the doctors say was likely a belated effect of the COVID-19 infection. He suffered in December 2020, and our hearts go out to Pamela and her family. And Jan Oswald has a joy and concern.
I was traveling with my 90-year-old colleague from when I was a teacher, and she retired soon after I did, but we kept in touch. And she developed a foundation for the Guatemalan women that I've been on the board for. So we had a meeting of the board while we were there, and we saw many beautiful pieces of art and many, many beautiful trees and scenery. We went to George O'Keeffe's ranch in Abiquiu and also her museum in Santa Fe. So it was a long drive, but it was fun. And someday I'd like to present the Guatemalan Foundation to the congregation. Thank you.
May all these joys and concerns, spoken and unspoken, be enfolded in the warmth of our community, and may that warmth extend in sympathy and compassion to all who are hurting in our community and in our wider world. May it be so. Now there's a reading.
I am watching you, looking at the candles or the darkness in between them. This is the blessing that we have kindled, this particular dark. If you stand facing me, this is what you will find. The gap between us where our common lives take shape. The space between us that we reach into for love. And you and I are caught between the candles, where we cannot help but live in the close and infinite abundance, held between the dying and the kindling of the light.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. A new way, a new way, a new
Okay, now is the time to extinguish our chalice. So in all that is, may you boldly go in peace and bring the joy of this community in your heart and to the people in this wider world. Thank you for coming.